Evening, Miss French. How are you?
I am well. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tonight, I have the pleasure of bringing live to your living room and your cell phones attorney Soma Syed. I said it correctly, right?
Yes, you said it very well. Absolutely.
Okay. And tonight, she is honoring us with sharing her knowledge and her insight and her experience regarding the COVID-19 government assistance programs. And I know that myself and many others, we have a lot of questions. We are every day with the media, we're hearing different things. Friends are telling us different things. People are reaching out to me with questions, and I have no problem admitting that I am not the expert. So I decided to bring on an expert so that she can enlighten us and talk about it. Tell us about yourself, please.
Thank you, Miss French, for having me this evening. I'm an attorney based out of Forest Hills, Queens, New York. I've been practicing over 15 years. My areas uh, of focus includes business contracts, immigration, and uh, real estate law. And I'm very involved with the Bar Association of Queens County, Women's Bar Association, New York State Bar Association, as well as I sit on the Community Alliance Group as a senior vice president. And I'm generally involved in the community, dealing with community issues and legal issues. And during this pandemic, and I've been trying to help as many people as possible with various unemployment questions, as well as the CARES Act, the Stimulus Act of 2020, who's eligible, who's not, what's happening with their stimulus checks, if they're eligible for it. And I've also been doing small conversations in my YouTube channel to answer various questions on immigration, unemployment, social distancing. And so I've been pretty busy during this time. But I'm happy to be here with you on Friday and talk to you about what's going on and what benefits are available for people.
Okay, well, first, let's start off by talking about the stimulus package, the stimulus check. So many people are telling me that they still have not received their check. They would like to know where is their check. Their friends has received direct deposit. I only know one person that's actually received a live check. And what is the status of that?
Well, the status is firstly, we're dealing with a software that goes back to 1962. So
Mm.
now we're in 2020, but the Treasury Department and the IRS, they have software that are at least 60 years old. So that's one issue. Number two is uh, they haven't really been, because of the pandemic, because of the issues related to having people work, they haven't really moved as fast as they should. And so millions of people have not received their checks. And it's really delaying implementation. So, and you have other types of delay. For example, millions of checks went to companies that do taxes, and usually they put their names.
True.
So when they get the refunds, they can cut their fee and then give the rest of the money to the taxpayers. So millions of checks went to them, and they came back returned. Then people who have filed their taxes, remember their qualification. It's not like it says, okay, 350 million Americans will get this check. It's not like that, not like other countries. So qualifications have been built into it. So if you have not filed tax returns in 2018 or 2019, you're not going to get these checks. So that's one qualification. Also, if you haven't had direct deposit information with the IRS, yeah, obviously there's going to be delay in mailing. Number three, Also, people who don't have social security numbers, they're not going to get the stimulus checks. Even green card holders or non-resident aliens, they're not going to get these checks. Also, if you have children over 17, you're not going to get you're not getting extra $500, even if they're dependent on your tax returns. And also, finally, I think what is very, very heartless is if you're a US citizen, you're married to a non-US citizen who doesn't have social security number, and that US citizen is not getting the stimulus checks.
Oh,
it's a penalty.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, so if I'm a US citizen, but let's say I'm in the process of applying to sponsor my spouse, I will not be eligible just because I'm married to someone that may be actually in the process of getting a green card and legal residency?
If you file joint tax returns. So for example, A and B are married. A is a US citizen, B is a citizen of Belgium and doesn't have social security number. So joint tax return should have been filed. But if the same US citizen, from the reading of it, if the same US citizen filed taxes individually, maybe married but filing separately, from the reading of it, it doesn't seem like it's going to apply to that individual. So a lot of these rules have been, a lot of clarifications have been made by the Treasury Department, the IRS, and a lot of experts, because so much of it was very unclear. And unfortunately, same thing happened in 2008 when we had the tax rebate back in 2008 under the 2008 stimulus package.
So you just said something very interesting to me. So if I'm understanding you correctly, so the bill can pass. So the bill passes, they're issuing stimulus checks. But then once it gets into the hands of the administration, they can tweak it as they like.
No, these rules have been already in the legislation, so we don't get to hear about it. They're in there, so it wasn't like if you're thinking like, did our Democratic leaders knew about this eligibility qualifications? Yes, they probably did. So maybe their staffers who actually had to read these bills A to Z, they probably knew, but it was probably a compromise for the overall necessity for the country.
I see. This is why I love to go to the experts, because there's some nuances that honestly a regular layman, regardless of how involved you may be, will not have knowledge of. So many people that are waiting for checks may actually not be receiving a check.
Right. But with this exception, it affects 1.2 million people. And we're penalizing families, people who really need it. And this includes a lot of frontline workers, nurses, hospital staff members, emergency staff, EMTs, even maybe police officers who are married to someone who doesn't have a social security number. So we're really telling people we're not going to take care of you, even though you're risking your life for all of us. And again, it sends a wrong message.
Now,
it's not humanitarian.
Now, is there a possibility of those funds running out?
Well, I mean, a large percentage of money has been set aside for this. Remember, it's $2 trillion. So it's a lot of money, 2 trillion. So so much of it it's still in their hands. It's a lot of money. So, and I haven't heard anything about it running it out. It's just people not getting it. and so many people who think they should get it, or they think so many people who think they should get it, or so many people who really need it, they're not the ones going to get it. So
Okay. And what is PPP and who exactly is eligible for that?
so PPP is a Paycheck Protection Program. It's under the Small Business Administration, SBA. So as part of the stimulus package, the CARES Act, the one just passed on March 27th, the Congress and the Trump administration allocated $349 billion for small businesses. Unfortunately, the money ran out within 2 weeks. And by the time the money ran out, almost 2 million applications have been approved, but no money to give. Furthermore, you had companies, because of loopholes like Shake Shack, Roots Chris Steakhouse, and even 71 publicly traded companies who don't even need the money. So the Treasury Department went back and clarified some aspects of the loan. And that's why Shake Shack, probably Roots Steakhouse, they returned the money, or they're in the process of returning the money. And probably other publicly traded companies have to return the money. So one of the requirements is anybody who's applying here, it's saying that, look, I don't have any other place to go and ask for money. That's a requirement. So that's what it's for. It should be for small businesses. IRS identifies any business that has 500 or less employees. So Shake Shack has 189 branches all over the USA. And every branch probably maybe has 20 employees or 30 employees. So all 189 branches could have potentially filed for this benefits, and you would be considered one application per store. So that goes for all kinds of businesses that have 500 or less employees. So what ended up happening, it really hasn't helped the people and the businesses that really need the money. The mom and pop stores, one person who owns a cleaner or a grocery store or a bodega or a restaurant, someone who's an accountant or a lawyer or an who has been affected badly. So what we're seeing is we're going to see some of this money going back to the Treasury Department, but the fourth this just passed yesterday. It was signed $480 billion stimulus package. And out of that, we're going to have $310 billion for PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. And 60 billion of that is going to be set aside for small businesses who haven't had any existing banking relationship. That means someone who doesn't have any relationship in the existing bank, or maybe someone who hasn't had any severe loan interactions going on with banks. So and it's going to be available starting Monday, so April 27th. So I would advise anybody who's watching or anybody who owns a small business, if you haven't done it, go to sba.gov, contact, if you another thing with PPP, this has to be applied through existing lenders. It could be any bank, very small banks to big banks. Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America are part of it. People's United, BNB, Dimes Savings Bank. So you cannot apply on your own. You have to get your information. You have to get payroll, your W-2s, if you're paying a mortgage or rent, insurance, you have to get all your data together. And if you have, most people have online banking. If you have not, you have to open one, and you have to upload all this information through your banker. You cannot do it on your own. But there's another, which is you can get a loan up to $10,000 EIDL. economy disaster loan, that you can file on your own. You just have to go to SBA website and you can file it. And also self-employed people are eligible. Nonprofits, for-profits, religious, faith-based organizations, veterans, tribal organizations, they're all eligible to apply for PPP.
Okay. Now this is the revised PPP that you're speaking
No,
of?
it's the same qualifications for
Okay.
both the CARES Act that was passed on March 27th.
Okay.
This is just adding money on top of that because small businesses have not been really taken care of. We're looking at millions of jobs. In New York State, New York City, it might be, Mayor Bill de Blasio said, it might be looking at losses of 75,000 jobs, just New York City. So, white collar workers have not been so affected because so many of them are still working remotely. So you have this small businesses, one storefront. You have people, this is their sole basis of income. These are the people who have been really affected. And so many people are on furlough, or they have totally lost their jobs, but they're relying on unemployment benefits. So.
And how about Uber drivers and taxi drivers and such? Where do they fall into this?
Well, fortunately, New York and I can speak more about New York since we are in New York. Mm-hmm. That the unemployment benefits are federal programs funded by run by state. So it's the federal government is giving you the funds, but each state sets up its own program and it sets up its guidelines. So every state has different guidelines. So for example, in New York, beginning March 27, when the CARES Act was enacted, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, yellow cab, you have green, then black car drivers, independent workers, and self-employed people. They could be accountant, they could be a writer, they could go and apply online or on the phone for unemployment benefits. But here's the catch. To this date, in every state in the USA, millions and millions of self-employed people, which include drivers, Uber drivers, many have not been able to process their application because you can file it online or it's not complete until they call you back and they verify for more information and they say, okay, you're good to go. Okay. And then you have to recertify every week. So millions of people have not seen any benefits for unemployment benefits, even if we've been in lockdown in New York City since March 15th and March 22nd. So now we're into April 24th. So it's been more than a month. Wow. And many people have not received the benefits. So it's very unfortunate. Our system is, again, the software system is pretty bad. And Department of Labor had to update its software, rewrite software. As this is happening, they didn't have any callback option. Their phone was getting flooded. So they added callback options that they would call you after you fill out your application online. They extended their hours. Now it's 7 days a week. And every day they're changing their software. It looks different. They're posting new announcements. So nobody has been prepared for this. It's at some level, it's a complete incompetency from the top down to bottom, bottom to top, at every level. And we have so much money, we have so much of everything, but we can't even take care of us.
It seems as if, listening to you speak, we were unprepared on every level. And yes. The healthcare, business, I mean, I'm surprised the buildings are not coming down. It seems education,
Yep.
transportation, we were so unprepared. And, and I have to tell you, I've been telling so many people that I feel as if I've been living in a bubble. You have this impression living in America, especially me being Haitian American. I'm so accustomed to dealing with tragedies that's happening in Haiti, and I support them, that I feel as if I've been living in a bubble all of this time, and it just popped. And hearing you speak, it's I guess I really was living in a bubble along with all of the other Americans and New Yorkers.
What's so sad that we had a head up on this whole situation, at least 90 days heads up, because we knew it was happening in China. Then it went to South Korea, it went to Iran. Then we didn't, then when it went to Europe, Italy and Spain, that's when America started to take more notice. And then, as you know, coronavirus, based on research, came from Europe, came to New York from Europe, not. So we had so much time that we didn't really, and interestingly, scientists have been talking about the rate at which infectious diseases can wipe out human race and completely diminish modern civilization. And there have been movies about it, documentaries, writings, and even our president dismantled a whole unit that was looking at this. So it's like we had the information, we had money, we had information, we had medical research, everything to prepare, but we probably didn't want to. That's number one. Or we just thought, people who are well off, they're going to be fine, and people who are on the bottom, let's just deal with it when it comes, and that's what happened.
I want to ask you a question because I'm listening to you speak about this. You sound very passionate and also very knowledgeable, and as if you've given it a lot of thought. What do you think we should take away from this? And I do have other questions for you, but what, as a state, as a country, as citizens, what should we take away from this?
We need to first really respect people, and this pandemic has shown that we don't treat people the same. And it's a sad depiction of the inequities in our society in terms of what information we have been able to learn. For example, so some of the senators in the foreign intelligence and other committees knew about this starting in February, and some of them sold off their stocks in other companies and bought stocks in medical equipment companies. That's number one. Number two is that we saw that in Black and brown communities and the Latino communities in New York, Black communities in Michigan, Chinese, Asian in Pennsylvania, and other states, you have a large percentage of Black and brown communities who have suffered from this virus and also died from it and are continuing to suffer because so many of them don't have the wealth, don't have food, don't have access to money, information, and they're suffering their children are suffering because now they cannot go to school and they don't have the personal computer equipment to do comfortably and efficiently remote learning. So, and it's happening in this country where you have such discrepancy of wealth. I was reading an article where the people from Upper East Side, Upper West Side, and Soho fled Manhattan. And that is why we have a lower number of infection from Manhattan. Queens, where I am from, we have the highest percentage of infections. And it's such a busy, crowded borough. And we're overwhelmed. Jamaica Hospital, Queens Hospital, Elmer's Hospital. The doctors and nurses did not have the protective equipment. And I just applaud that each individual went out of their way to purchase initial protective equipment to give to doctors and nurses. And on top of while this was happening, we allowed over 270 million protective gear to go out of the country to other countries. And we knew that we're going to be facing this because it was just sooner or later. And we didn't even use the Defense Production Act competently, where the Trump administration could have told companies to start producing masks, body gears, and we didn't do it. And then on top of the response, he needs to speak responsibly. He told people at his press conference yesterday that they should ingest household disinfectants to cure them of the coronavirus. Mm-hmm. I mean, what kind of leader speaks that way about people? And so, I mean, we have to be better people. That's what we are not. I think we need to, and we need to understand that the humorous and the level of and the blind discrepancy, and that we have a class system, ingrained class system, which transcends everything.
Well, you know what? That would lead me to my next question. Do you feel that the federal government is providing enough funding regarding testing? Because I know that's a crucial piece in getting things back to normal, having adequate testing. Do you feel that? Yes.
I want to go back to say firstly that there should have been a uniform federal position and from the get-go. It shouldn't have been left to each state to deal with the chaos and the sadness. Because if we had some federal guidelines, because I haven't seen, usually in a situation like this, when H1N1 happened, SARS happened, we had CDC and National Institute of Health at the forefront. And we haven't seen that this time because it's a result of what we get out of the White House. So there should have been a national uniform response. That's number one. Number two, the federal response came, but it was pretty haphazard way, I would say, very haphazard in the sense that they get the COVID-19 test sites began. Then we heard on April 8th that they're going to stop. Then April 10th, they're going to continue. So you're putting people in confusion, like what's going to happen.
And that causes
and then it says, okay, the states can take over. We were going to give the funding and provide support, or the states can take over this site. So it was very confusing. Like, you don't want to hear this in the middle of all this chaos. Mm-hmm. But with the Stimulus Act, there's funding for hospitals and medical facilities. From a third of the CARES Act, there's $192 billion have been set aside for hospitals and hospital facilities. But the Health and Human Services has been pretty slow in getting that money to hospitals. So there's a lot of backlog with that. with the new stimulus package of 484 billion, 75,000 again billion have been set aside for hospitals. Out of that, we have 25 billion for COVID-19 testing. Out of the 25 billion, 11 billion is going to go to states and localities and how they want to use that money. So in overall response has the response has been inadequate. The response has been very haphazard. And if the same what the administration did, it came in a very orderly fashion, and the message was positive from the beginning till now, I think we would be in a better situation. Would not be wondering, do we have enough testing? By the way, we didn't have enough testing, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
People were turned away from hospitals. And so many people died at home. And because so many people died at home, we don't have an accurate number of deaths from COVID-19. So that's going to get revised. We saw over 50,000 today. That number is going to get revised maybe in months to come.
And right now, what is the current status of unemployment? How much is it? Who's eligible? How does immigration play a part? Is TPS? I know I'm asking you a lot of questions, but I think TPS, DACA, are they eligible? And what is the current length of time for unemployment?
All right, so I'm going to break it down for your viewers. So I'm going to speak about New York because I'm most familiar with that.
Okay.
But every state has its own rules and they can be found online if someone is in a different state. For example, in New York, you have 4 categories. Category number 1 is somebody who has already been getting unemployment benefits, and then this pandemic happened.
Okay.
So they can keep recertifying. You have to recertify every week to get the benefits for previous week. So they're eligible for 39 weeks, and then additional $600 from the CARES Act on top of that. So if you have lost a job or your employer shut down its business because of the pandemic, you can apply online or on the phone.
Yes.
And if you're qualified, you'll get benefits up to 39 weeks plus the $600.
Okay.
Now, if you are self-employed or Uber, Lyft driver, green cab or yellow cab, or you're just self-employed generally, because you don't fall under the regular unemployment benefits, because unemployment benefits, the way it traditionally works, that you work for an employer, before the employer gives you the check, it keeps money for Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, unemployment insurance, payroll, and the employer pays the payroll taxes, and that's where the funds come, and that's how you get money if you get fired or you lose a job. But if you just left the job on your own because you don't like your employer, or because you want to get a new job, or you want to go back to school, you don't fall under the qualification.
I think that's something. I'm sorry, did I in reference to what you just said, I'm hearing of a lot of people like in Georgia where they're saying they're going to open the state back up, and a lot of people are saying that they're not going to go back because they don't feel safe, so they won't be eligible for unemployment, I'm assuming.
Well, here's the thing.
And hold on to
in New York, if your job resulted from COVID-19 illness, let's say you have a family member who got ill, you have your home taken care of, or you don't feel safe in your because of that. Because remember, non-essential businesses are basically shut. So nail salons, places, hair salons, even law firms, unless to a certain, there's some exceptions, are closed. Everything is closed. So if you have a state of emergency and your governor or your city is shutting down certain businesses, and even though you can go, but there's a fear of getting affected because there's somebody else is sick at home, and that's why you have to stay, you can still apply. Say, because your loss of employment is a result of the pandemic, however way it came about.
Okay. Now, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We were speaking of how does immigration play a part, the length. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. So I just want to finish on the unemployment. So
Yes.
it's the simple employment, they fall under the pandemic unemployment assistance. If you become eligible, you only become eligible after you fill out your application. They call you back, and then if you are eligible, you also get the $600 plus you have to recertify. And finally, people who have exhausted their benefits as of July 1st, 2019, and they don't have jobs, they can reapply, and they would be eligible for 13 weeks of benefits and $600. As far as TPS and DACA, they're qualified so long as they had eligible employment during the time they worked. And if they're continued to apply, they have proper work authorization paper going forward. But yes, you have to have you also have to have a social security number in order to process unemployment benefits.
Okay, that's so good to know. Okay.
So I wanted to know that one of the most affected group we have is undocumented people who these people don't have access to any funds. They don't have access to stimulus checks. They cannot rely on the unemployment benefits. This is the group that is suffering the most, and they need the most private help as much as we can do. A governor of California has set aside millions of dollars to give help to undocumented people. I was just told that New York City is going to give $1,000 to help people. So some level of help to people who don't have access to unemployment benefits or stimulus checks. So
what would that look like? Is it still in the planning phases, or have they started sharing some information?
California has already began to roll out, and that was about 2 weeks ago, because when the stimulus bill was passed, and it turned out that so many people are going to be left out, and the states have leeway in how it takes care of its own citizens, regardless of immigration status. They have a great leeway, and mostly they're able to do it because of humanitarian reasons, such as this right now, that they need to provide some sort of relief. And I also want your viewers to know that New York City is providing hot meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can go to over 465 schools. You can go to check nyc.gov. You can pick up meals for you and your children. They're not going to ask you anything. In the morning is for families, students and families. From 11:30 for adults. They're not going to ask you. They're not going to want to look at your ID or if you have legal status or not. You can pick up meals for all 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And I encourage everyone to participate, because I feel as if when the government is actually giving, you have to participate and you have to receive, because next time around they're going to use the excuse, we offered but no one used it, so now we're going to take that money and apply it to somewhere else, apply it to another program, another community.
Right.
That community was participating much more than this community. So
unfortunately, yeah, absolutely. I recommend everyone to go and pick up these meals, and it's also a good way for people to go out for a little bit and also get food.
That's true. That's very true. It can be a part of the morning routine. You know, you walk to your nearest school, 4 blocks, 5 blocks, and you get the activity. That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. That's helping to keep some normalcy going on in your day. See, that's why you're my guest, because you're here to, yes. That is so true. That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. What is my next? Oh, yes, something else that I've been hearing about. It's unfortunate. This one is these two questions are related to the deceased as opposed to the living. I'm also hearing that people are having issues with birth certificates for the victims of the virus, as well as autopsies. That, as you said before, many people that died in their home that weren't tested, and they have passed away, and the family feels as if they want answers.
Well, firstly, because hospitals have been overwhelmed with coronavirus, people and the way the virus was spreading. If you recall, a month and a half ago, that they're just simply overwhelmed, and there are too many dead bodies from the city morgues to funeral homes. From funeral homes are the ones who fill them out, then they send them to the city, and then the city has to process the paperwork for the death certificates. So the city morgues the hospital morgues were behind.
Mhm.
Then funerals homes were behind, and then getting to the city to process this, they were behind as well because of the chaos, number one, and also they were waiting for some sort of guidelines from the federal government as to how to categorize some people, what they died from. So
Mhm.
that's been the backlog. As far as New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio said he's pushing the health commissioner to process this. Normally it'd be 1 or 2 days, but what's been said is a lot of people need the death certificates to access funds they will need in order to for living expenses. And so that's been the most unfortunate fact. With the birth certificates, it's the same thing because of the chaos and the pandemic. Just this hospitals have been overwhelmed. The city has been overwhelmed. Just getting from one step to the next and getting everything processed. And remember, also you have city employees. So many of them are not working, and many of them are working from home. So we don't have the regular staff
And such.
employees to process this. As far as autopsies are concerned, if anybody passed away from coronavirus, uh, they don't want to do autopsy because if you open up that body, for example, the brain, I'm not a doctor, but this is from what I read. If you do autopsy and open the brain, the virus could live there and it could spread. So you don't want to necessarily do autopsies. From the estimation of deaths from people who are pathologists, someone from Long Island Jewish Hospital, they have a group of 100 pathologists. They say only 5% bodies on which autopsies have been done.
Mhm.
And to do an autopsy, you need permission from next of kin. So even if there's some people might want that to happen, the autopsies to be done, there's not enough space in the hospitals to do in the morgue, city morgue, to do an autopsy. So when someone dies in home, you call 911. After 911 comes, maybe the fire truck or EMTs come. Someone from the city will look at the body and they will make a determination based on the conditions based on the condition of the person passed away. Sometimes they would write it based on my reading, it's an influenza-like, or maybe probability of COVID-19. So So that's how you have underreporting of COVID-19. And that's why autopsies are not being done, because you just don't have the capacity to do it.
Okay, thank you. So, and you made an excellent point in terms of the autopsy, because imagine a medical professional is interacting with someone that's responsive and that's alive with PPE. But then, as you said, when a person has passed away, go into all of the body fluids. And yeah, that's really putting the immediate area at risk and the medical professionals at risk to actually have to go in with all of the body fluids and all of the germs. That's an excellent point. You may not be a doctor, but that is an you made. That's why we have to ask ourselves the hard decisions, because yes, the next of kin would like answers, but those answers can take that medical professional away from their next of kin. So we have to choose sometimes between the living and the dead. So that's an excellent
Right.
point.
It's unfortunate because the virus can live in air, and you just have to take as much precaution as possible. And I believe they have enough autopsies done to figure out what's going on with the body when you have the coronavirus. And they have enough bodies to see what's going on with the body and the mind. And I know, from what I know, CDC is on top of it, and some hospitals who are working on this.
And I'm not going to keep you much longer. Thank you so much. Are there any relief programs right now for homeowners that are paying mortgages, renters, student loans? Are there any current programs, or is anything in the pipeline?
So I'll take up one group at a time. For renters in New York City, the mayor said you can call 311 if you're facing eviction or you're having some issues to help. And there are attorneys available, legal help is available. Furthermore, Governor Cuomo has put a moratorium on eviction for 90 days. I personally believe that doesn't go far enough, because we have so many people who have lost jobs, and most renters have had their income affected because of this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the benefit being provided by New York City and New York State. As far as people who have mortgages, so if your mortgage is, it's two categories. If your mortgage is backed by the federal government, those would include, for example, FHA loan, Federal Housing Administration loan, or HUD, Housing and Urban Development loan, or Department of Agriculture, Department of Veteran Affairs. If it's a Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae, you can possibly get a 6 months forbearance on it. And then if your situation doesn't improve, you can request another 6 months. But if you have a private lender, generally New York State, every state has worked out something with the private lenders. In New York State, governor has spoken to many of the lenders and said to give homeowners 90 days moratorium or forbearance on paying mortgages based on hardships. That might not be enough, because we don't know when we're going to get back to normalcy, number one. We don't know when people will start working, and what's the percentage of the population will have jobs, say, come May 24 or June 1st. We don't know. So that might not be enough.
What is a forbearance?
Well, forbearance is basically saying, hey, I cannot pay, put off my payments for 90 days. That's what basically is. I still owe the money. I'm going to pay it, but put it off for me. and my situation will change in 90 days, and I'll start paying from there.
Now, once that 90 days is up, okay. So now the 90 days is up. They now owe 90 days going back, and then they have their current. Which one takes precedence? How does that work? Will they now have to concentrate on the fourth month or the 3 months going back? What happens exactly?
So with the way forbearance would work is, say, I put off paying 3 months. So on the fourth month, I if I have the capacity, I would pay it all of it, or whatever is owed, or I would start just on the fourth month, while interest and everything will be maintained and accumulating. So I would start up on the fourth month, what's the payment is, as if I was paying whatever amount I was paying.
Okay. So it's not really a forgiveness. It's
no,
just,
it's not.
It's putting it off a little bit.
It's putting it off, just giving you room to recover and deal with the situation and the bills that are basically, if you have to pay for food and maybe other essential. So you can just focus on that. You don't have to worry about getting evicted. You don't have to run to court if you're facing mortgage foreclosure or eviction. So it's a breathing room for you to just focus on the essential, basically.
And how about rent and student loans?
So student loans, if your student loan is federally backed, if it's federally backed, your student loan will start with the alphabet E. If it starts with E, automatically the federal government has suspended all payments, zero interest, till September 30 of 2020. No interest, you don't have to make the payment, you only start new October 1st. If it's a private loan that starts with D or J, and you're not able to make the payment, you can call them and ask for forbearance. It's typically 90 days.
Okay.
And your interest will accumulate, but you don't have to make the payment. You're not being default, and it's not going to be reported to your credit bureau. Okay. I want to also share, while we're on this topic, if you have a car and you have car insurance, call your insurance company to ask for deduction on your car insurance, and let them know, and go back to the date you actually stop using the car, because many people are home, they're not using their car. If you have if you have a lease or you owe money on your car, you can, and you're not able to pay, call them and ask to defer payments on it. They will work with you. If you have credit cards and you're not able to make the payments, call them and then ask for deferments on those payments. As far as utility bills are concerned, Con Ed, National Grid, no one, even the New York City Water Department, they're not going to cut off any essential utility, but you can call them and let them know that this is the situation.
Okay. All right. And two things. One, what can we expect from our government going forward? And, we had our technical difficulties. So in the beginning, I didn't give you an opportunity to tell our audience about yourself. Please, what can we expect? And I would like everyone to understand, why is it that you are so knowledgeable? Seriously, because God blesses us with intelligence, but it's up to us to develop our intelligence. So please, what can we expect? And tell us a little bit more about who you are.
All right, you're so kind. Well, I'll talk about myself a little bit, then I'll talk about what going forward, what we are expecting. So as I said, I'm an attorney based out of Queens, New York. I grew up in Queens. This is my home. So I really feel what's going on and you know, I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about the world. I'm passionate about law, and I'm passionate about justice and humanity. And I that's what really drives me, to see that people are treated equally, that information gets to people so they can really make knowledgeable decision about their lives, that people are given the same benefits, same opportunities, because it's not, your environment is a big factor in who you become, what you become, and what you do with your life. And if we can give equal opportunity to everyone, regardless of their color, gender, regardless of their national origin or sexual orientation or anything that is not, that you cannot change, then we should do that. I mean, we should really, really treat people. I like to put people before profits. I like to put people before big corporations. I like to put people before incompetent and bad government and bad elected officials. And we have many of that. And that's very unfortunate. And that's because we don't value people because they are people. That's why I'm passionate. That's why I like to know what's going on. That's why I like to try to help as many people as I can. And I because we have a brain, each one of us has an intellect, we need to nurture it. And that's what drives me.
Okay.
But as far as expecting going forward, surely this is a big lesson for the world. Number one, it's a lesson for every government, every country. New Zealand, there's a 39-year-old prime minister. She probably has done the best job in taking care of its people. It's about 4 million people, and tackling the pandemic in the most efficient way. We're the most developed country in the world. We have access to technology, money, science. You know, we can send people to the moon and do space exploration, but we cannot take care of people in New York City, in Michigan, in every state and every city where people have been suffering because of whether it's hunger, lack of access to medical benefits, lack of access to computer technology for their children, or basic childcare, or even pay equality between men and women. You know, that's lacking, or even between people of color and others. So there's a huge pay inequality. But going forward, we need to have a national uniform response. If we have another situation like this, it's happening in another country, we need, you know, alarm bell has to go off. Say, hey, this could come to us, because we are one world and people are traveling all the time from one corner of the earth to the other, with people, animals, products, services. It's happening. You cannot stop people from traveling. As more people travel from one environment to the other, more viruses, more all kinds of diseases are being also transported. It's very well known historically, scientifically, and environmentally. So we really, really have to prepare, and the alarm has to go off. You know how we have, they have a alert system for hurricane, tornado, and even terrorism. We need to have some sort of alert system saying this is happening in somewhere, some other country, but maybe it's going to be at level 1, and we need to start preparation. And we need to have protective equipment, and FEMA has to give us new guidelines. I think every home has to have emergency kit, mask, maybe even body equipment. Who knows? This infectious diseases, biological weapons, nuclear weapons, they're not going anywhere. Just gonna grow. This was man-made. This pandemic is man-made, and we're suffering. So we need to be better prepared. People have to be more knowledgeable, and people cannot rely on a comedian to give scientific information. We need to rely on Dr. Anthony Fauci or someone from CDC or NIH. or Sanjay Gupta. He's a better source
Or an
than
intelligent attorney to consult profession.
Well, thank you. I can only speak about the law, but I add a little bit of the other, but I don't have any of the certificates. So only the legal law certificate.
So
preparation.
Oh, I was going to say, what you said in terms of it's not going away. I had a doctor on the other night, and he explained that if a person catches the virus a second time around, it may be even harder on them. So in terms of preparation, you're right. God forbid that person should be prepared in their mind to think that they can catch it a second time, and be extra cautious and be prepared. God forbid it does happen, because now they're more susceptible.
So let me give you an example. That's a great example. Let's say it's a winter and so many people catch the flu. So you have the flu, let's say in December 1st. Your immune system is already weak. And before you're fully recovered, you catch it on December 21st. So you're not even, your white cells or red blood cells, you're not fully recovered. So your immune system is not strong enough to fight it the second time. Same thing, if you don't sleep for 2-3 days straight, you're not going to be able to stay up the fourth day. The same analogy works here. And this Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, I believe Kentucky and some other states opening their states up so early, it's very, I would say, is very irresponsible, because you're putting the whole country at risk, and the families of these people who are going to be going out and opening these stores and working are not working. So it's we just need to prepare and be ready.
So if someone wanted to get in touch with you and for your services, or perhaps for some counsel, guidance, how would they get in touch with you, please?
So right now, the best methods of getting in touch with me are via my email. So Soma, SOMA, LAWYER @gmail.com. That's best. I can be found in Facebook. I can be in Twitter. So those are the best methods to get in contact with me. You send me an email, a message, what's the issue is that you'd like me to get in touch. Then I can maybe answer it in the email or Facebook, or I will have to have a conversation with you, or I can refer you to another organization or individual who is more able to provide the information. But my office is in Forest Hills. When the pandemic is at its end, and hopefully I'll be back in the office. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, my office number is 718-261-2003.
Oh, I was having technical difficulties unmuting the telephone. But thank you so much. I so appreciate your participation and your patience. I have to tell everyone, Soma's a newlywed, so I so
Thank you.
I so appreciate your sharing your time with us on a Friday night.
Thank you.
That you and your husband are working from home, so it's still TGIF for you. Thank you so much. Please shoot me a text with the information that you shared in terms of your email and your social media, and I'll be sure to share it, because I'm certain I'm going to be bombarded with the follow-up questions from individuals. But then I would love to have you again in the future, because as I said, you're very knowledgeable. And my thought is, throughout this pandemic, to constantly share information with the community. So perhaps you can come on again when I have a better grasp of all this technology, and continue to share your insight and your knowledge, because as you
I would
said,
love Love
Yes.
to. Thank you so much for having me.
Very welcome. But thank you so much for participating and for talking about it. Talk about it with Sabine French. I tell everyone this is not my platform, this is our platform. Without communication, we have nothing but misunderstandings. Communication is key. So we have to talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. Thank you.